Atlanta Falcons fall to the Detroit Lions 20-6 up in Michigan. This is the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. As always, you got the crew back here. Derek Rackley, Dave Archer, DJ Shockley here to talk about all things Falcons, football, and the NFL. Here's a quick rundown of what we will talk about. Yes, we will break down the matchup from last Sunday. Talk about Falcons going international this week. Falcons going over to London to play the Jaguars. And then we will take a quick look into the NFC South, see how things are looking as it stands right now. So, fellas, let's dive into the matchup. It would probably be very easy for us to dive into what went wrong, okay? So let's just talk about some of the positives that you could take away from a game like this. I mentioned as we were closing the show last week, we were all high in spirits and celebrating the 2-0, and I said there will come a point when we come in here to do this podcast, it'll be after a loss. Yeah. There are very few teams, obviously you can look in the record books, that end up going undefeated through the course of a regular season. So before we dive into what went wrong, Arch, what were some positives that you would take away from the game against Detroit? Yeah,
I thought that the defensive side of the football played winning football. I thought you got an opportunity from the defense to hold on to the rope, to try to get, untracked a little bit on the offensive side of the ball, and you struggled to get that going, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I thought there was a sequence of plays or sequence of series in the second half. You came out in the third quarter, and the Lions had deferred. They were going to start the second half with the football. You come out, immediately get a 3 and out. And what you do is you force 3 consecutive punts, and on the fourth series, you get a takeaway. Jesse Bates gets the steal. You're in plus territory. You look up, and it's just early fourth quarter, and the score is only 13-3. Mm-hmm. And you thought, wow, based on what I've been watching, are we down like 3 touchdowns right now? That's what it felt like. Right. But the defense held onto the rope. Now, after we didn't do anything with that opportunity, then it felt like a little bit of air got taken out of the defense, and they were able to move the football on the ground, and they put in their last touchdown. But I thought that was really encouraging. A defense that had given up no points in the fourth quarter, ultimately gave up 7 in this game, but still really held on and held tough in light of the fact that your offense wasn't really staying on the field and you weren't really getting a lot of help from them.
I was thinking the same thing watching the game, Arch. I'm like, gosh, the Falcons are not playing well, but there's still a game here. Like, they still have a chance to get in this. You mentioned in the third quarter. DJ, what positives did you take away from it, even though they came away with a loss?
I think to expand on what Arch talked about, especially with the defense, is some of the situational stuff that I thought they did really good. You talk about they were 1 of 4 inside the red zone. Detroit were. You talk about, you look up and they got 20 points, but you got a deep pass to Laporte. That was a big touchdown play that was outside the red zone. And obviously Goff on the 1-yard line running in was your other touchdown. Other than that, like Arch mentioned, you held your own. And then 4 of 14 was Detroit on third down. Those are winning situations for you where you get off the field. And like you mentioned, when you don't capitalize on those situations, it kind of takes air out of you. Yeah. But I thought the defense did enough to give you an opportunity, like you guys just mentioned, to stay in the ballgame. So I thought the situational part of the game was really good. I thought Grady, I thought Onyemata, I thought those guys were really, at times when they wanted to take over, you can see the pressure. Calais had a couple good plays on the outside. You saw Bud Dupree come around the edge, especially in that second half, making some plays. So I thought up front, you were really causing some chaos. I know you didn't get any sacks, but I thought you created some havoc. You forced Goff into some throws that he had to get out his hands quickly or faster than he wanted to. So there were situations in the game that you could look at and say, all right, the defense is playing to, quote-unquote, close enough to the standard that you want, and gave your offense a chance.
Yeah, I think Goff was somewhere around 180, 190 yards passing in the first half, but they kind of put the clamps on him in the second half. A couple of individual performances. You talked about the third interception of the year for Jesse Bates. He also had 11 tackles to go along with that. Caden Ellis with 10 tackles in the game. And, of course, Bijan Robinson, now 102 receiving yards through 3 career games, is the first Falcons rookie running back to hit that 100-yard receiving mark that quickly in franchise history. So those are some of the positives that came out of it. So, DJ, let me bounce right back to you. Now let's talk about why the Falcons ended up coming away with an L. To me, some things stick out. Brian Branch was a problem, okay? The Lions pass rush ended up being a problem. The Lions team had 1 sack for the first 2 games. They ended up with 7 in this one. You could say their pass rush or the Falcons' pass protection just wasn't good enough. The run game was not there for Atlanta like it had been the first 2 games of the year. And then the inability to take advantage, in my opinion, of a banged-up Detroit offensive line should have been an opportunity for them to feast. Was it one of those things, or was it something else that stuck out to you that was the biggest area?
No, all those things I think were a direct correlation of why you didn't play collectively well and get the win. I think one thing that sticks out to me is obviously not being able to get the run game going. And that's something that obviously we've seen over Arthur Smith's tenure here, that the run game is a part of the offense. The run game is a big part of how they get going, and you create everything off the run game. To go out and rush for 44 yards is not what the Falcons are about. And I thought that was a big part of the game. But also, we sit here and we've talked about it, and we talk about the keys to the game. We talk about, things that are winning football. And we just pointed out how the Lions were not good on third down. The Falcons weren't good on third down. But it also leads back to what we always talk about, Arch. It's early downs, and the Falcons struggled on early downs, which hurt them. And you look up, and hey, you're 3rd and 8 and plus, you're 3rd and 9 plus, and that happened majority of the ball game. And that puts you into a situation where, hey, you got Aiden Hutchinson who just, putting his ears back and he can come after you. It was kind of disheartening to see you not be able to get it going, and then you force, Desmond Ritter's hand to be able to throw the ball a little bit more. And we got to be honest, there were times where, as Arch, we've been there before, you miss throws that you probably should make. 3rd and 4th down stick out to me the most. You had opportunities to hit Drake on a couple of different plays, and you missed him. It happens. It's a part of the game, and you understand that, and you learn from it, and hopefully next time you play better. I think defensively on the other side, you gave up 5.6 yards of play to the Lions. That's not going to be good. I mean, you think about being able to stop them and get them off the field, and I thought you gave up too many explosives on the defensive side. Yeah. I mean, I counted 6 or 7 at least plays of 15-plus yards, whether it's in the run game or the pass game. They created the explosive and changed the landscape of field position. They changed, even though we got good inside the red zone. You gave up too many of those. Yeah,
I don't know if there was miscommunication in the secondary on the touchdown to the tight end, and you kind of knew that Amon-Ra St. Brown was going to be a problem. He's a really good receiver in this league. He finds ways to get open. He did that in this game. DJ, you talked about third downs. I was going through the game, and I went back and I looked at the third down situations. I'm going to read off the third downs that Atlanta had in the game. Both teams were 4-14 on third down, so it wasn't great, wasn't terrible. But here's where the third downs were for Atlanta. 3rd and 3, 16, 14, 9, 14, 6, 7, 17, 4, 14, 5, 2, 6, 9. So they only had 3 third down situations that were essentially 4 yards or less, right? So either penalties or not getting the job done on 1st and 2nd down, i.e. that probably reflects right back to the inability to run the football.
Well, it reflects on what they were able to do on 1st down. I don't think it's just the run game. You got to be able to throw the ball successfully on 1st down. Excuse me. If you go back and look at their numbers, they had 25 1st down plays in the game. They netted 47 yards on 25 plays. That's 1.8 yards a play on 1st down. That you're never going to be in a good situation. 9 of the 15 third down situations were 7 yards or plus. So that reflects what Shock was talking about 1st down. Yes, we want to run the football, but teams, this was a Detroit team. If you watch this game very closely, Detroit was going to try to stop the run. Mm-hmm. That was what they were ganging up. They weren't playing any shell coverage or any of that kind of stuff. Branch was in the box. They had an extra safety in the box. They were going to stop the run game if they could. If you do that, then you've got to be able to throw the ball on 1st down with success. Atlanta did not have a lot of success on 1st down. I count a number of incompletions on 1st down. I count 3 sacks on 1st down. Those are the scenarios that add up to the problems that are created on 3rd down. So I agree with Shock completely that 3rd down is a byproduct of what you do on early downs. Now, Atlanta was able to pick up some 1st downs on 2nd down a few times. And, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. But their inability on 1st down, 25 plays, 47 total yards out of 25 plays. That's 1.88 yards per play. 14 of their 1st down plays went for 2 yards or less. Wow. I mean, that's just not going to work, and so that's where they've got to attack.
Yeah, when they're going to stack the box to stop the run and you got to throw the football, you got to be able to hit a slant route, you got to be able to hit a 5-yard out route, something along those lines to give you for a second down and 3 or 4 instead of second down and 10, or like you said, Arch, with the sacks on first down, now you're sitting back in second down and 14, 15, 16. It's going to be hard to stay on schedule playing on the road. The one thing I will say, and I know I'm kind of backtracking here, as far as good thing, I felt like the Falcons managed the noise fairly well. Like, you didn't see a ton of issues with pre-snap penalties. It seemed like they had a good plan that came in with the noise. That wasn't a major factor. It was the execution of the offense, which was the factor. Guys, let me just go back to you real quick. In your opinion, this is before we go to Jacksonville, the number one area for you, Shock, that came out of this game that needs to be fixed quickly?
Oh, I think the number one thing, you got to protect your quarterback.
Yeah.
There's not a game, I don't care who you are, what style of quarterback you are, where you're going to win a lot of games where your quarterback gets sacked 7 times. And you know, a lot of people are going to say, all right, well, it's a lot on the quarterback. I'd say it's a collective thing. It's an entire offensive thing. It's not just the offensive line. Everybody says, oh, the offensive line has to protect, but well, it's a lot of other things as well. The receivers, the tight ends, the backs. Everybody works in conjunction when it comes to an offense, and I think protecting the quarterback ultimately will be the number one thing. You're going to be going into Jacksonville where they got another good defensive front.
Yep.
They got a couple guys up front who can get after the quarterback. But also it takes everybody on the outside making their, collective 111 to get it done. So I think protecting your quarterback is obviously number one, and everything else I think comes with that. The run game, the pass game, everything comes together if you protect number 9.
Yeah, I read a quote from Desmond where he was basically trying to shoulder all the blame of what happened in the game, and I think from a macro perspective, you can appreciate that, but it's not always all on the quarterback. Yes, I'm sure he realized that Archie's got some better decisions that he's got to make, some throws that he has to hit, but like Shock talked about, it's a collective effort on the offensive front. In your opinion, area that needs to be fixed quickly for them to rebound next week?
Well, there's no reason to double up on what Shock's talking about. You can't win games if you're only going to have 44 yards rushing. Your quarterback gets sacked 7 times. So I'll leave that one to what Shock did. He just did a really good job of breaking that down. So let's flip it to the other side. You can't break coverages. You can't blow coverages. Atlanta gave up, I think, 7 plays, and Shock's right. I counted them 7 plays of 15 yards or more. The Laporta touchdown is a mix-up in the back end, because Bates is down in the box, Richie Grant's deep. When they come off that fake, and he's on a slight boot to his left, they knew based on tape that he was going backside, and it was a mistake. They just blew the coverage there. It happens.
Yep.
Happens every game. Sometimes the quarterback hits it, sometimes he doesn't.
Yep. In
this situation, he hit it. So I would say that number one is what Shock said as far as getting getting things fixed. But number two would be don't give them up. Don't give anything cheap up. And you played too well defensively to give up a couple of plays of 20 yards or more. One of them being the big touchdown play that kind of was the one that kind of got the crowd in the game. You talked about crowd noise because the crowd was pretty much quelled most of the game other than that play.
Yeah.
So don't give up big plays and let's not bust coverages.
All right. So the communication in the back end needs to be better. DJ's talking about the pass protection needs to be better on the offensive side. We got to be able to throw the football a little bit more effectively and not give up so many sacks. So, before a 2-1 team starts to panic, and trust me, the team is not going to panic. It's going to be the local media and the fans that are going to start panicking. Is going to go on the road, and they're going to go on the big-time road across the pond to London, which we all know this is nothing new. Like, this is the new NFL. There are games in London. Everybody's playing in London. So making excuses about the travel, the trip, guess what? Both teams got to fly over there. Yeah. Jacksonville does it a little bit more frequently than everybody else because of the deal that they have with Wembley Stadium and the NFL. But Atlanta going over to play Jacksonville this week. You got a Jacksonville Jaguars team that coming into this season was thinking that they had a great chance of winning their division, going into the playoffs, and through 3 weeks, they find themselves 1-2 coming off a bad loss last week to the Houston Texans. So without going into keys yet, some of the things that you think about for Atlanta to get back on track of facing Jacksonville this weekend.
I think it comes back to the things you did well in the first couple games, which was be able to run the football. This is going to be a game where you play a Trevor Lawrence who, likes to push the football down the field. You got an ETN. You got some playmakers. You got a guy who played here for a while who you know really well, who is a playmaker in Calvin Ridley. on the other side. You got a guy who played for the Falcons for a long time in Foye Oluokun. So there is some extra added incentive for the Jacksonville side of it to play well, but ultimately this Falcons team won't worry about that, as we know. They got to go out and they got to play their style. They got to play their game. And I think it's all about kind of just handling the mistakes that you had last week and not allowing them to fester into week 2. Yeah. And I think, to the next week. And I think that's something that Arthur Smith kind of alluded to after the game was, we had opportunities. It's not like we just totally didn't play well and, we didn't have our chances. They had chances to make those plays. I think about, Kyle Pitts pretty much running, not wide open, but it was a play that you got to hit. It was a deep shot, and we missed him. Those are the situations in a game that can flip the game, can change the thought process of a team about how you go out and attacking them. So I think there are situations in the game that you have to make sure that you hit on, the routine stuff, tackling in space. I mean, all those little things that win games for you are the reason why you will win. So I think they have to go back to that mindset of doing the small things first and then allowing all this stuff to come together.
Arch, you've done this trip with Atlanta. The Falcons have done this trip before. For the average fan that's listening and watching, what would be your advice on how Atlanta succeeds this weekend dealing with the trip? I mean, I mentioned it, like both teams have to deal with the trip, but what have you seen in your experience that is most important for teams that have to make the trip over and to go over and play well on Sunday, which is morning here, afternoon in London, to come back with a victory?
Yeah, it's changed dramatically over the years. The NFL has tried to massage it and fix it to where it's not as cumbersome. It's not as violating of your time, if you will. It used to be you'd go over there for a week. I remember going over there as a player, went over there and you stayed a whole week. And then, next thing you know, you're taking pictures with Big Ben. You're at the Parliament. Hey, dude, we got a game this week. So, you're trying to find the Queen. Where's she at? And so all that stuff has been pretty much eliminated. So now Atlanta will leave Thursday. We're going to leave Thursday evening-ish. Get over there kind of almost like flying a red-eye from the West Coast, only you're flying to London here. You'll arrive in the morning. Hopefully you can get some sleep on the plane, and then you'll go into your routine. That's the number one thing that coaches try to talk about is how much can we stay on our similar routine. Now, this will be different because we both know from a quarterback perspective, Friday's a big day. A lot of times Friday's a red zone day, and so you're talking about putting points on the board. And so you're working on stuff that is going to be very important. Third down conversion stuff, probably some 2 minutes. So there's some things that are packed into Friday, albeit it may not be in pads, that are impactful things that you're trying to brush up and polish to get ready for Sunday. So it'll be important when they get there to get into their routine, to get to their practice and all this kind of stuff. And so you're going to have young guys that have never been to London before. Right. There's a whole bunch of guys on this team that are young that maybe have never been overseas or never been out of the United States before.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot more to this than just saying, hey, everybody's done it before. But Jacksonville goes all the time. They go every year. Well, Atlanta doesn't go every year. Last time Atlanta went was in 20, and the time before that was in 14. So they don't go over there very often. In fact, you probably only got a few guys on his team that were even on that team that were in 20.
Right.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts had a monster day, so he's excited to go back to London. That was his breakout game over in London his rookie year. So I think there's a lot to this. I think it'll be very interesting to see how they manage it. But the number one thing that Arthur's going to try to do is how routine-oriented can we be? Yep. The problem is when you get to another country, we've all been to a different country, you've got to go through customs. Yep. So it's not just the 53 guys or the 69 guys that are there player-wise and coaches. Now you got all staff members and all the digital people and all the trainers and all. So it's different, and I think you have to admit to that is going to be different. And so each player is going to have to be pretty mature in the fact that don't let all the, in quote, outside noise we talk about all the time, don't let that affect your preparation. Make sure you study your tape on the plane. Make sure when you get there, you get situated and get into the mode that we're here to play a football game. And it'll be a challenge.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Arch. Also, the thing that kind of came to my mind is This is a trip where veterans need to step up, because what's easy to happen, I've done this trip many a times covering games over there, is you're flying through the night and you're going to get there tomorrow morning and you're going to be exhausted if you're not one of those types that can sleep for 5 or 6 hours on a plane, which I can't. So you land and you go through customs and all that other stuff, and the first thing you're thinking about is, when can I take a nap, right? And I haven't seen the Falcons schedule, but generally what teams do is they want the guys to get off the plane, change clothes, and start moving around, right? Get back into a routine, move your body, and get into this Friday practice, as you talked about, is very important. So there are areas where veterans can step up for the younger guys that have never been on a plane ride this long, that have never been to Europe, and that are thinking about this as a tourist type trip, that this is a business trip and we are here to win a football game. If you want to come here and you want to do all that stuff, do that in the off season, right? Like, go take your picture with Big Ben at the Parliament or Buckingham Palace, and then we're ready to go play football. So speaking of football, Arch, back on the field, DJ kind of talked a little bit about football. Let's get to your kind of biggest keys, either for Atlanta, what they have to do, or what they're going to face against Jacksonville that could pose some problems.
Yeah, Jayville is a team that, in watching them on tape, Shock's right. They do like to take shots down the field. Trevor's got a big arm. He can shoot it. I mean, everybody watched him play at Clemson, watched him play here at high school locally. The guy's a big-time player, and he's got really good core receivers around him. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. He's got Calvin Ridley. You got Etienne in the backfield. They added Tank Bigsby from Auburn, who everybody would know. A guy can play, and it's a solid offensive line. But what they're doing is they're doing some good stuff out of the shotgun with their run game. So Atlanta's going to have to take care of the run game. Do not allow them to run the football inside zone. They like to run counter. They throw a lot of RPO stuff. They like to throw screens. Atlanta's been pretty good in the recent years handling screens. Those are the kind of things you're looking at on the offensive side of the ball. Now, this team has struggled mightily on third down. They're converting just 29% early on the season on third down, only giving up 6 sacks, so they've done a decent job of protecting the passer. On the other side of the football, you mentioned some of the names that they've got. I mean, obviously there's some local guys, whether it's Travion Walker, Foye Alukin, who we know. Andre Sisco is an interesting guy that's a multifaceted safety that you'll see come down in the box and will play tight ends. He might even draw Kyle Pitts some. He led the nation in interceptions as a freshman at Syracuse, ended up having 13 interceptions in 3 years at Syracuse. He's been in the league for a couple of years now, and he's a pretty good cover safety that'll come down the box. A guy named Andre Sisco, Tyson Campbell, former Georgia Bulldog. So there's some familiar names here. And this is a defense that's been pretty good on third down themselves. They're only allowing teams to convert it about 35, 36% of the time. So a solid group that, as you mentioned, got off to a really good start, won on the road against the Colts, in division win, and then kind of stumbled around against Kansas City. They held the Chiefs to just 17 points now. So this is a team that's got the capabilities, and a lot of people liked early on as one of those teams that could make some damage, do some damage in the playoffs.
I got a chance to call a couple of games in college with Travis Etienne, and I thought the kid was special when I saw him in college. And this might be wrong, guys, but I feel like he's maybe a little bit of a combination between Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, because he does have some physicality. I don't know if I think he's as quick and shifty as Bijan is, but he's got some top-end speed. Now, this kid gets out into the space, and he's probably going to outrun most people if they don't take the right angle. Anything else stick out to you as far as this matchup, or what Atlanta needs to do to rebound to get this victory?
I think Arch did a great job of talking about the individuals that are going to be facing the Falcons. One other guy that came to mind was Josh Allen on the outside. 3 sacks, leads their team. And I think every week you're going to probably see a guy like this. I mean, first week we saw Brian Burns, who was, wreaking havoc early in the ball game. And we saw Aiden Hutchinson last week. This week, Trayvon and Josh on both sides. So I think understanding where those guys are and being able to find ways to neutralize those guys, whether it's chips, whether it's screens, whether it's whatever you need to do to keep those guys off your quarterback, I think is a big deal as well. So as you can see, I'm all about protecting my man Dez. So we're making sure that we know where these guys are lined up. But I think that's going to be a key to it, because we've seen those guys kind of wreak havoc, whether it's in the run game or the pass game. Those guys can be kind of deadly to what you want to do offensively and to change everything you want to do. But I know, Arthur Smith well enough where, they're going to have a plan plan for those type of guys and make sure that they're not the guys that are changing the scope of the ball game.
Yeah, it'll be important for Dez to take that next step. And he's a young dude who's still learning on the job. And he's been on the job 7 times.
Yep.
And we talked about this before. How good were you on your 7th time in the job? So, but he's learning. He's making some mistakes, but still learning. And that's something Arthur told me on his coach's show this week. Is he talked about one of the most impressive things about Desmond Ridder is when he makes a mistake, he doesn't make the same mistake again. And those are things that are going to need to really kind of begin to push forward. If we want to get better in the passing attack, he's got to be able to find the soft corners. He's made a couple of mistakes where he's thrown it into hard corners with safeties over the top. Find those easy throws you were talking about on first down. If I've got Bijan outside and they've got a soft corner, let's take that hitch route out there. Let's get to 2nd and 6. Maybe bust it. Maybe we got first down again. But those are the things he's got to kind of learn to do and then anticipate some of the coverage he's going to see. He had man coverage on 4th down on the play. He's got Drake coming back at him on a curl route and air mails it, okay? Those are throws that he's got to hone in on and make that transition to that next step that he's going to be, because the guy is talented as the day is long.
I'm trying to think about, for the viewer, for the average fan, how important, how much is placed on the shoulders of a quarterback. I have 2 of them here, okay? So think about your big-time organization, right? You're going to have a CEO, you're going to have a president, okay? Those guys Desmond Ridder is not either of those 2 guys. But he very well could be like your senior vice president, okay? Like one of the very important roles of an organization that if that job is not done well, then that organization is not going to be successful. Think about all the business owners out there that tell you how many times they failed before they figured it out. Right. But yet the average fan wants a young quarterback to be ready to go, hitting on all cylinders in his low 20s, right? 21, 22, 23 years old. So try to think about that comparison the next time that you want to criticize a young quarterback. These guys right here could tell you from firsthand experience how many things have to go through the mind of a quarterback in, call it a matter of 2 or 3 seconds, right? Yeah. From the time that you take the football from the center till you get it out of your hands, the amount of information that you have to process to be successful against the best players in the world. Okay? Not just a varsity high school team, the best players in the world.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, that executive vice president didn't get to hit him in the back as he's trying to turn it loose.
Yes,
so we can talk all we want to about comparing about the suits that are running organizations, and that's a difficult job. Ain't nobody hitting anybody in the mouth.
Yeah, legally, that is. Before we wrap up, let's just dive in real quick, Arch, to the NFC South as we see it right now. Of course, Atlanta 2-1, Buccaneers 2-1, Saints 2-1, Panthers 0-3. Still early in the season. I think this thing is probably shaking out like we thought it was going to. A lot of new quarterbacks, inexperienced quarterbacks taking over in this division. You didn't think there wasn't a Matt Ryan, a Tom Brady, a Drew Brees in this division that you think, well, that's got to be the favorite. Has this thing started to shake out kind of like you anticipated?
Yeah, no question about it. Obviously, the injury to Carr is a big deal for those in New Orleans. They have a really good backup quarterback in Jameis Winston who can come in and play, but Carr was they felt like he was going to be able to take them to the next level. Now they get Alvin Kamara back, which is a big deal for them. So they're going to get that dynamic run game, throw the ball to a guy, similar to what we do with Bijan Robinson. So that's a big deal. I thought the last night's game or the game we saw this Monday night with the Eagles
and the Bucks.
Well, it didn't confirm really anything for me for the Bucks. They're still struggling to run the football. Yeah. It confirmed with me how good Philly is up front on both sides of the football. I mean, their defensive and offensive front is unbelievable. We'll play Philly in the playoffs. We'll worry about the Philly in the playoffs. But, I think you're exactly right, Rack. This is a division that's wide open. Yep. I don't even think Carolina's out of it. I think Carolina at 0-3. I thought they did some good things out. They lost to Seattle, but they did some good things out there. I think they're still learning. They'll get their young quarterback back on the field. Andy Dalton played this week, but I think it's wide open, man.
So the one good thing about London weekend games is if you are an NFL fan, like you get football
Get up.
all day long. Okay?
up.
So set that alarm clock because Atlanta's going to be in action at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time.
Let's go,
And if
Arch.
you decide to make the mistake of not listening to the game on radio, listening to Wes and I, make sure you tune in because they're playing the game in Andy's bedroom. They're playing the
Toy Story.
Pixar's Toy Story. They're having the game in Andy's bed. I'm going to record it. I got to go see it. I got to see what happens.
Yeah, this is the new spin on how they're finding ways to create entertainment around NFL action, and I think it's really cool. So 9:30 a.m. will be kickoff between the Falcons and the Jaguars this weekend. And then if you're a football fan, you can just sit there on your couch, your recliner, and watch football all day long.
No kidding.
Arch, have a great trip.
Thanks, Mike.
Enjoy it. Bring the mojo and the W back with you.
Say hello to
trying
Big
to do
Ben
that.
for us, yeah.
Yeah.
Do I have to do that?
Yeah, you got to do that. You got to go.
Arch said he's only been to Big Ben like 13 times.
Well, I had a picture. One quick story. Last time I was over there, I took a picture with Big Ben in the background.
Yeah.
And I'm not a selfie guy. I have no idea. I'm from a generation long gone, right? Taking pictures, trying to. My daughter has killed me, so I probably have to go redo that.
Okay.
Because it's the worst selfie in history. I'm not going to post it so you can see it because it's brutal, but my daughter would be horrified if I did.
To Archer's defense, he has came a long way because recently our man Arch was on the video doing the gritty. So Archer came a long way from just a little selfie. Now he's doing gritties with video. So
Says Rack pulling up his
yeah,
social media.
yeah. Find that. It's awesome too. It's awesome. I loved it.
Oh, 9:30 a.m. this weekend. Your Falcons will be back in action against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That has been the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. Again, continue to like, subscribe, review on Spotify, iTunes, AtlantaFalcons.com, and YouTube. We will be back right here. Arch might have some heavy eyelids next week, but he'll power through it.
I'll be here with you.
He'll be here with us. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week right here on the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T.